Sego Seguego. I'm Kimberly Murray, and I'm Mohawk of Kanesatake. I'm a professor at Queen's Law School, and I'm the Queen's National Scholar for Indigenous Legal Studies.
I'm Susan Andlukak. I am an Inuk, originally from Akaved, which is the Kivalliq region of the Nunavut Territory. I have been living in Ontario for quite some time now, so coming to you from Ontario today. I am a singer-songwriter. I am a mixed media artist and founder of a charity called the Arctic Rose Foundation, where we do expressive arts work with children and youth in northern regions.
I can't believe it's been 10 years. I actually feel like it was just yesterday when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the commissioners released their final report. But I would say the one thing as we mark this milestone of 10 years of the anniversary, I am a little discouraged by how slow the progress has been on implementing the 94 calls to action.
My experience as a founder of a charity and as an Indigenous artist, Inuk artist in the music industry for the last 30 years and observing how this nation of Canada has come to the table, my observation is we started slow. There was a lot of work to do initially in the early years. Since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it feels like what's occurred is that the nation has been stirred. It's been an incredible experience these last 10 years as an artist working from the stage or wherever we work from. We know what we need to do as Indigenous and non-Indigenous in the area of healing and recovering. And so the allies are very important in this work, and asking our allies to simply wait and let us do that discovery work ourselves first. The intentional creation of a gentle space that we can all do that work in, it is complex. It is a complex time that we are living in. And I feel like these last 10 years has been this intentional work towards safety emotionally. So it's been a privilege to observe this as an Indigenous artist, Inuk artist. There's a lot to do, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot being done.
I think we've seen the most meaningful progress in relation to the 94 calls to action in the education field. We see mandatory curriculum was brought in a number of provinces and territories. We see a lot more being taught in elementary school, high school, colleges and universities. And I think that's a really important thing because as the Truth and Reconciliation Commissioner said, there has to be an awareness of the past. And so I commend those institutions and education field for really ensuring that these calls to action are implemented. I have been concerned though over the last 10 years, how sometimes we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back with changes in governments and changes with commitments to making the curriculum mandatory. And so we need to keep putting pressure on governments and education institutions to ensure that this curriculum on the history of Indian residential schools and colonization in this country continues to be taught to all people that are attending the universities and colleges and in high school.
Where I've seen some incredible and meaningful progress in these last 10 years especially is around mental health. This has become a primary focus for my work through our charity Arctic Rose Foundation, and utilizing the arts and Indigenous artists and their stories. In our stories are tools, and how do we get the story and the tools out of the story, and in that process is process. We develop the process individually through each artist, and they become tools in this toolbox that we are needing very greatly to develop. And so I see a lot of progress there. Artists organizing, creating safe spaces to share their stories and their healing perspectives. So I've seen and observed that also these last 10 years, and it's been an incredible experience to watch you to be a part of that.
I think it's really difficult to fully understand and know how many calls to action have actually been implemented by the federal government and the provincial governments and the churches. And I would say the biggest problem and why we have this problem is that the government has not implemented the call to action to create the National Council for Reconciliation. We do now have the legislation and we do have an inaugural board of directors, but the actual organization is not up and running yet. And that body was was meant to be the oversight to the other 93 calls to action. And so I'm hopeful that once we have the National Council for Reconciliation, they'll be able to gather the important information and data from all the governments, the federal government, the provincial territorial governments, and the church entities, so we can fully understand what's been implemented and what has not been implemented. I do believe that very few of the calls of action have been fully implemented, and a lot more work needs to be done.
That delays our progress in terms of the development of these ideas that we are creating and utilizing. Only we can do that work as Indigenous artists because we are born to and brought up in these environments of crisis. The biggest hurdle often is funding. And I urge and I challenge our leaders in all levels of government to stop finding funding to fund our programs, because what we know happens is you shut down all this work being done in one area of Indigenous work and say, this is new money and we're doing all this work for you. We need to stop doing that because you stop a progress here that has been in place for years and years and years. And then we have to start from scratch over here. We have to figure out what to do with that money, and we're starting all over again. And all that work that was done previously is just halted. It's just set aside. So I think that's the biggest hurdle is funding, but new funding. Funding in addition to what has been funded already. That's been the biggest hurdle I've experienced in the development of the work that we are doing. Having said that, the work continues. We don't stop. We work until we can't work anymore. For us as an organization, I imagine for many Indigenous organizations, that I would urge our governments to change that policy, if it is in fact a policy. Don't take from Peter to pay Paul. Find new funding.
For me, I see as a priority, and maybe this is because of my background as a lawyer and a law professor, I feel that the 18 calls to action that are directed at the legal profession and the law and the court system are really important calls to action that we have to address. We have an ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in this country. We have increasing rates of over-incarceration rates of Indigenous men and women that continue to go up for decades now. And the legal system has not implemented probably all of the calls to action that were directed at them. We have law schools that still don't have their mandatory curriculum. We have law societies that have not implemented mandatory curriculum for lawyers. I believe that the priority should focus over the next number of years on those very important calls to action in relation to the justice or the legal system.
Say in the next 10 years, more investments in the way that we do that work. I call it cultural cognizance. And what that means is culture of crisis versus traditional culture or even community. Community is intact, whether it be reserves or Inuit communities. Those are in place. They're fine. It's the environment of crisis and the cycle of crisis that we are stuck in. And so cultural cognizance means that culture of crisis. And we know that work because we were born to it. And so the next 10 years, we have to make more investments in these discoveries. As we discover them, the complexity of healing, we need more investments in many ways, capacity, funding, all of these things in our communities and respective reserves, Indigenous groups. And these next 10 years are going to be critical. They're going to be critical times because the investments we do now heal enough. And then what? And then what? So I think the next 10 years are pretty critical. And the constant consultation, frankly, the leading, we have to lead this work, has to come from us. And let us do that work moving forward.
True reconciliation in Canada will happen when we have full reparations for the atrocities, crimes against humanity, and genocide that's happened against Indigenous people. That means full reparations means implementing all the calls to action, addressing the issue of land back and the rematriation of land to First Nations and Inuit and Métis communities. Without full reparations, we just can't have full reconciliation or true reconciliation in this country.